I had never considered faith to be anything more than a glitch in the rational mind. To me, it was known as a desperate attempt to find meaning in an indifferent universe. I didn't hate those who believed. I just didn't understand how they could be so comfortable with not knowing, not proving, not testing. For years, I built my world inside Petri dishes, test tubes, and magnetic fields. And it worked. It really worked. Until it didn't. My name isn't important. I've changed it a few times already. What matters is what happened in 2019. That year, my lab received a private grant. Anonymous, the kind of money that doesn't ask questions but expects results. The subject was neuroregeneration, healing the brain from within. The team was small. For scientists, all of us obsessive, brilliant, and tired. We worked underground. Literally, the facility was in a decommissioned subway tunnel. No windows, no clocks, just routines, data, and humming machines. We called it Project Lazarus. Ironic, I know. At first, it was standard work. We reprogrammed protein chains, tested gene switches, monitored recovery in lab-grown tissues, and then, one morning, a rat we had euthanized, verified, tagged, recorded was found alive, not twitching, not reacting to stimulus, breathing, heartbeat warned. No one believed it, not even the ones who saw it. We checked the footage. The rat had been dead 30 hours, cold as metal. Then, somewhere around 37 a.m., its body convulsed just once. Then stillness, then life. No new chemicals had been administered. No remote stimuli. No residual electrical charge. It was just alive again. I remember staring at its little chest rising and falling in perfect rhythm. I blinked for maybe the first time in a minute. My colleague Vera spoke softly, like she was in church. What did we do? We tried to replicate it. Of course we did. That's what we do. But nothing worked. Not one of the other test subjects showed signs of revival. We thought maybe it was an error in the autopsy, a misdiagnosis of death, but the vitals were clear. That rat had no pulse, no brain activity, no oxygenation. It was clinically, biologically, and utterly dead. The anomaly shook us, but it also fed us. We doubled down, triple shifts, notes, graphs, arguments. 100 hypotheses, and not one that made sense. But I couldn't stop thinking about the moment. That rat moved again. It wasn't like some cinematic resurrection. It was subtle, private, like it had made a choice. That's when the voices started. I don't mean hallucinations. I don't mean insanity. I mean voices from people I trusted. Vera told me she had a dream. In it, a man in a suit of ash stood in the lab and whispered, "It's not yours to take." She was shaken, pale, but she laughed it off, said maybe she just needed sleep. Then Javi, our chemical analyst, started praying under his breath while working. I asked why. He said he didn't know, just felt like he needed to. None of us talked about it out loud, but we all felt it, the weight, like something unseen had entered the lab the night that rat came back. 3 weeks later, Vera quit. No warning, no explanation, just a text that said, "Don't look any further." I did. I had to. And then it was my turn. It was a Thursday. I was alone, late at night, running simulations. The lights flickered, not unusual in that place, but the machines didn't. Everything stayed powered. I stood up to check the circuit panel and froze. Not because of fear, because of silence. True silence. The kind that makes your ears ring. No hums, no clicks, no outside noise. Then I heard it, a voice. Not loud, not soft, not human. It said, "You already know." I spun around, heart racing. Empty lab. I wrote it off as stress. Sleep deprivation, a trick of the mind. But then I found a file on my desk the next morning, handwritten, not mine. It said only 3 words. "End this now." I laughed. I did, but it was hollow. Because the handwriting was mine, and I never wrote it. That was the night I stopped recording results. I began recording experiences. This journal. This voice you're hearing now. If you've made it this far, understand, I'm not here to convert you, convince you, or confess to anything illegal. I'm just here to tell the truth. And the truth is, I no longer believe in randomness. Something happened. And I think, no, I know I wasn't alone in that room. Not that night, not ever again. Asterisk. The days that followed weren't filled with fear. Not at first. They were filled with obsession. I needed to find a way to explain what had happened, to reduce it to a process, to isolate a variable, to remove the unsettling and leave only the observable. I reviewed the logs, time-stamped every second of the rat's revival, checked every cable, every compound, every person's location that night. Nothing stood out, no pattern, no contamination, no mistake. That's what drove me mad the most. There was no mistake. Everything we had done was by the book. If something had intervened, it wasn't recorded. And if it wasn't recorded, it was outside the system. And anything outside the system I couldn't control. That word echoed a lot in my mind during those nights. Control. I didn't become a scientist because I loved knowledge. I became one because I hated not knowing. I hated chaos. I hated having to guess. The scientific method was my lifeline in a world that made no sense. It gave me rituals, sequences, structures. It kept the madness out. Until it didn't, there was one thing I kept avoiding: the rat. It was still alive, eating, moving, breathing, and not once did it behave abnormally. No seizures, no degeneration. Its body temperature was stable, blood work clean, brain scans normal, and that made it worse, because a miracle that degrades over time could be called a fluke. But a miracle that endures, that's not science. It's something else. I started recording myself audio journals, late at night, sitting in the dim light of the containment room. I would ask questions out loud, not to the rat, not to the machines, to whatever was listening. I'm ashamed to admit how often I cried, or how often I begged, please, just tell me what you want. Silence, except one night. There was movement just outside the glass door. I looked up from my recorder and saw nothing, but I felt it. You know that feeling when someone walks behind you and your spine tightens? That, but more. Heavier. Like thought itself had weight. I got up, opened the door, walked the corridor, empty, cold, unchanged. Until I returned, the rat was no longer in the cage. It was sitting on the center table, still, looking directly at the microphone. That was the first time I spoke directly to it. Why, I whispered it like a secret, not because I was afraid of being heard, but because I was afraid of what I might hear in return. The rat blinked, then turned away, Nothing else happened. I put it back in the cage. We played the footage. The rat moved, slowly, deliberately, as if it understood the space, the tools, the perimeter. No panic, no scurrying, just movement. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I found a note on my locker. Different handwriting. It said, "You've been chosen to witness. Don't turn away." I confronted Javi. I thought it was a joke, a sick prank. But he looked me in the eyes, really looked, and said, "You think I'd mess with that thing after what it did?" "What it did?" I asked. He paused, then said, "It stared at me too." That's when I realized I wasn't the only one unraveling. Vera had left. Javi was distant. Marla, the biologist, stopped talking entirely unless it was about protocol. She never looked up from her notes, as if eye contact might break something fragile inside her. We were all cracking, and no one above ground knew, because we didn't report anomalies. We knew the cause. Grants get pulled, projects shut down, reputations destroyed. But it was more than that. It felt personal. As if the lab itself had become a mirror, showing each of us what we were too afraid to admit. In my case, it was this. I had never believed in anything. Not really. I believed in rules, but not in meaning. And now something was challenging that. Not with arguments, not with visions, but with presence. That kind of quiet, overwhelming presence that makes you question whether you've truly been alone your whole life. One night, as I prepared another round of tissue samples, I whispered a sentence I had never spoken before, not even as a child. "If someone's there, I need you to show me, and I swear to you on the very laws I once worshipped." Every light in the lab dimmed for exactly 7 seconds, then flicked back. No surge, no loss of power. Just a dim, like a breath held, then released. I collapsed to the floor, not out of fear, out of something far more dangerous to a scientist. Hope. I didn't tell anyone about the lights, not because I feared they wouldn't believe me, but because I feared they would. That 7-second dimming wasn't electrical. I checked every log, every backup system, every emergency response. No record, no anomaly, which meant to possibilities. Either the equipment failed without detection, or something interfered from outside the system. And I was starting to accept that outside the system didn't necessarily mean physical. The next morning, I arrived early. I couldn't sleep. I needed to be near it, near the rat, near the silence that wasn't empty. The air in the lab had changed. It wasn't heavier or colder. It was aware. That's the only word I can use. Like something watched through the air itself. The rat was still there, alive, normal, but now it slept with its back to the glass. Almost like it didn't want to see me anymore. I sat for hours, didn't run tests, didn't write notes, just sat and stared, waiting for the moment to repeat, hoping it wouldn't, terrified it might. Around noon, Marla arrived. She looked worse than usual, pale, tense. Her eyes darted toward the rat's enclosure, then quickly away. "Did you feel it?" I asked. She didn't pretend not to know what I meant. Instead, she nodded. Slowly, "Something passed through here," she whispered. I asked her what she thought it was. She didn't answer with science. Not with particles or fields or waves. She said, "It wasn't for us." That sentence broke something in me. All this time, I'd been thinking we were discovering something, unveiling a secret, pushing the edge of knowledge forward. But what if this wasn't meant to be found? What if this was a glimpse through a door that should have remained closed? That afternoon, I deleted every digital record of the event, not out of fear for exposure but out of respect, and a strange, growing guilt I couldn't justify keeping. It archived like a specimen. It wasn't data anymore. It was an encounter, and you don't store encounters. You carry them. The following night I returned alone. This time, I didn't bring tools. I brought a chair and a recorder, and I sat in front of the rat's cage. "I think you know I'm listening now," I said quietly. The rat opened its eyes. No sudden movement, no shock. Just awareness. I felt something in my chest then, not a tightening, not panic. It was like something inside me at a line. As if a piece I never knew was missing had quietly fallen into place. I began to speak not about the experiment, not about science, but about my life. I told the rat, or whatever might be behind those eyes, about my father, about the night I found him motionless in his chair, about the silence in the room, about the absence that screamed louder than any presence I'd ever known. I talked about the years I spent denying anything I couldn't test, and how that denial had made me cold, how I had watched life unfold without ever participating in its meaning. And then I said the words I never thought I'd say: "I want to believe." That's when the temperature dropped. Not a surge, not a malfunction, just a slow, quiet descent into cold. The breath from my mouth became visible. The lights stayed on, but every screen froze. Every sensor flatlined except one, the heart rate monitor on the rat pulsed higher, stronger. And then it looked directly at me. Not like an animal, like a witness. And in that moment I felt it. Presence. Not just in the room, inside me. I didn't fall to my knees. I didn't cry. I just sat there, eyes locked, heartbeat steady. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't thinking about proving anything. I just believed. The rat laid back down. The screens came back online. The temperature returned. But something had changed. In the air. And me. I left the lab that night and didn't return for 3 days. I needed time. Time to process, time to unlearn. Because belief isn't an answer. It's a wound you agree to carry. And mine had just opened. Asterisk. When I came back to the lab, it felt smaller. Not physically, mentally. The walls seemed to press in closer, the ceilings lower, the instruments quieter. It wasn't claustrophobia. It was something else. The lab no longer felt like a place of discovery. It felt like a threshold. I didn't greet anyone. I didn't log in. I walked straight to the containment room. The rat was asleep. Normal readings, stable vitals. But I couldn't look at it the same way anymore. It wasn't a subject. It wasn't even an anomaly. It was the last door I opened before I stopped needing to open doors. Marla was there already. She was reviewing sample data, but not taking notes, just watching. "Anything new?" I asked. She shook her head. "Nothing measurable." That phrase landed heavily between us. Nothing measurable. We had entered a space beyond graphs and scans, a space where language failed us, where science could not classify what we were living. Javi hadn't shown up for days. No message, no notice, just gone. I didn't blame him. I found a sealed envelope on my desk later that afternoon. No name, just my workstation number. Inside was a single photograph, grainy, old, a lab, not ours, maybe from the 70s. In the center of the image, A man in a lab coat stood next to a metal table, and on that table, a rat. Same posture, same body shape, same marks, but this was decades ago. On the back of the photo, a line was scribbled in ink. We were warned. I searched for metadata. Nothing. No digital fingerprint. Just paper and ink and silence. I kept the photo in my coat pocket like a relic. I wanted to throw it away, but I couldn't. Something about it felt sacred or cursed, maybe both. That night I opened a file on my recorder I hadn't touched before, personal log. Day 0. A message from myself, recorded at the start of the project. My voice sounded arrogant, confident, disconnected. We'll crack Neuro-Regan in half the projected time, it said. The body is predictable, the brain just pretends it's not. I laughed bitterly, the kind of laugh that tastes like blood. I didn't recognize that man anymore. The arrogance, the dismissal of mystery, the certainty. I deleted the file. It didn't belong to me now. Later, I went back into the containment room. The rat was awake, waiting. At least that's how it felt. I sat down, recorder in hand, but I didn't press play. I simply whispered, "What do you want me to do?" And the lights flickered once, as if acknowledging the question. I'm not saying the rat controlled the lights. I'm saying something did, and that something was listening. Every moment after that became a negotiation between what I could explain and what I had to accept, a kind of internal truce. The rules of the world hadn't changed. But I had the following week. The funding was pulled. The anonymous backers disappeared. No one from administration asked why. They didn't need to. The silence said enough. We were told to wrap the project, destroy the samples, archive what was left. I didn't. I took the rat home. Not to experiment, not to worship. To protect it. From them, from the system, from what I might to come again. It lives in a small glass enclosure now, in my study. No machines, no sensors, just food, water, and quiet. Sometimes it looks at me. And sometimes I look back and ask myself, did I find God, or did something older find me? The truth is, I don't know. And for the first time in my life, that answer is enough. There is peace in not knowing. There is faith in the silence. And every night before I sleep, I whisper the same words. I'm still listening. It's been 6 months since the project ended. 6 months of silence, mostly. No follow-ups, no investigations, no lawsuits. It's as if the entire thing was erased, not just from systems, but from memory. I tried reaching out to Marla once. The number was disconnected. I sent a message to Vera through an old email address. No reply. I don't think they're avoiding me. I think they're doing what I'm doing, trying to move forward without dragging the past behind them like a shadow. But shadows don't disappear when you stop looking at them. They grow. I keep the rat's enclosure clean. I change the bedding, refill the water. It eats well, sleeps often, never makes noise. I've stopped trying to explain it to myself. Some nights I forget what it is, what it represents. Other nights, it feels like the center of the universe, wrapped in fur and stillness. One night a week ago, I woke up to find it sitting at the far end of the glass, staring. I hadn't made a sound. There were no lights, no movement, but it was waiting. And for the first time, I didn't feel fear or awe. I felt understood. I sat beside the enclosure, whispering thoughts I hadn't shared with anyone in years, memories of failure, moments I regretted, faces I forgot I loved. I cry, not because I was sad, but because I finally felt safe enough to. It didn't blink. It didn't move, but something about its presence felt absorbing. Not judging, not fixing, just holding. That's the word I keep coming back to. Held. Like I was being held together by something I couldn't define. The next morning, I checked the rat's pulse. Strong, normal. I don't know what I expected. That it would be gone. That the miracle would vanish the moment I tried to measure it again. But no. It was still there. Still alive, still silent. Later that day, a letter arrived. No return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper, typewritten. You are not the first, but you may be the last. Below it, a number. 1972. I searched everything I could find. Medical journals, government archives, independent research logs. Only one result surfaced. A classified incident report from a defunct biomedical lab in Oregon, dated March 1972. The file was redacted, but one sentence was left untouched. Termination recommended. Anomalies cannot be controlled, only witnessed. That word again, witnessed. What does it mean to witness something you can't share? What does it cost to carry a truth the world won't accept? I don't know if I'm being watched. I don't know if I've been marked, but I've stopped worrying about exposure. The threat isn't that someone will find out. The threat is that no one ever will. And maybe that's what belief truly is, not telling the world what you've seen, but living like it changed you. I started writing more. Letters, notes, pages of questions I'll never send. Some addressed to myself, some to something else. I don't pray, I don't kneel, but I speak into the air, into the silence, and sometimes I swear the silence listens. Sometimes it even answers. Not with words, with presence. When I sit quietly in the dark, I can feel it pressing gently on the edge of thought. Not invading, not forcing, just reminding me that I'm not alone, that I never was. So here I am, a failed researcher, a forgotten project, a rat that won't die. And something invisible that won't leave. This is my life now, and I'm still listening. Asterisk, asterisk, there's something I haven't said. Not because I wanted to protect anyone, but because I wasn't ready to accept it myself. But now I think I owe it to the truth, to myself, to whatever has been watching. The night before the project was shut down, I stayed in the lab alone. Everyone else had gone home, or at least claimed to. I remember the clock on the wall had stopped ticking. Not broken, just paused. I was sitting at the terminal, reviewing older logs, when I noticed a folder I hadn't seen before, buried deep. It wasn't labeled like the others, just a string of numbers. I opened it. Inside were recordings. Not from our team, older, dated over 20 years ago. Voices, notes, echoes of people I'd never met, but they were describing the same thing. Same experiments, same anomalies, same rat. The name Lazarus wasn't ours. It had been used before. Repeatedly. And every time, the same result. Something came back. Something lived when it shouldn't, and every time, the team disappeared. I don't know how we lasted as long as we did. Maybe because I talked to it, maybe because I listened. One of the recordings was different. A woman, calm voice, worn but steady. She said, "We thought it was resurrection. It wasn't. It was arrival. That sentence shattered every remaining piece of resistance I had. This wasn't about reviving tissue. It wasn't about curing death. It was about what slips through when you open the door. And we had opened it again. Maybe it's always the same rat, or maybe it's a vessel, a shell for something older than understanding. Not evil, not good, just outside. And now I carry the awareness, the presence. It doesn't control me. It doesn't speak in words, but I feel it, and the pauses and the moments when everything should be silent, but somehow isn't. So here's my confession. I don't want to stop it, whatever it is. It's filled a space in me I didn't know was hollow. It hasn't made me better. It hasn't made me wiser, but it made me honest. I stopped looking for meaning in theories and started finding it in moments. A breath held too long, a flicker of light in a still room, the way the rat sometimes stares, like it remembers something I haven't lived yet. I keep a journal now, not of data, of feelings, not because I want to document, because I want to remember, because I know someday soon someone will come looking, and they'll find this, they'll find you, listening, and maybe they'll understand, or maybe they'll repeat it all. But if you're hearing this, and if you felt even a fraction of what I've described, then I want you to do one thing. Write it down. Say it out loud. Done. Single quotes. Let it vanish. Don't let the silence win. There's one more thing. Yesterday, a note appeared on my desk at home. Plain white paper. No envelope. Handwritten. 3 words. Same handwriting as before. Same pen. Same message. End this now. I don't know what they want me to end. The recordings. The project, my life. But I won't. I've come too far. I've seen too much, and I know now. Some truths aren't meant to be proven. They're meant to be witnessed, and I'm still listening.